Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner, and this is a Champions League episode. Going to go through Tuesday and Wednesday's action across the continent of Europe. Try to pick out a best bet for each of the days and an ultimate best bet. If you've been with me, follow me along through here. You're probably used to that by now, but figured I'd also get in a nice little ad. I'll put a promo code in the description of this podcast if you're looking on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that sort of stuff. But all lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag. It's my favorite place to get my bets down early and with reduced juice offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. It's a really good place to save some money, which is important because every single cent of juice that you save on a wager makes it that much easier for you to profit. You can use a promo code found in the description, fund your account, get a bonus. I think I get a little piece of that as well. Not a piece of yours, but a piece from them. And I recommend it. It's a good spot. I've been there for a while. And especially if you like to bet openers, the first lines that usually come out, especially college basketball season coming up, there's usually some numbers you can exploit in that sport. So not sure if I'll be doing a podcast for that one just yet, at least not on my own, but probably will continue with what I did last year for pregame. But anyway, that's enough to get into it. Now we'll just start with the Champions League on Tuesday. I'm going to go through kind of talk a little bit about clinching scenarios because a lot of some teams have already moved on to the knockout stages. Some are in peril, but then ultimately try to come up with some best bets and try to find a way to win some money. I feel like Champions League has been very good to me. I'm going to try to keep that going. So without further ado, we'll go to Tuesday's matches. We have Red Bull Salzburg hosting Chelsea. Currently Salzburg, a 3/4 goal underdog at home with most of the juice. Chelsea off a really hard fought draw, thanks to a late equalizer by Manchester United. But Salzburg, they've got a lot of work to do. Unfortunately, I haven't followed them too closely because they're in a league that I don't watch regularly. I'm not even sure if the Austrian league is even televised in the US, but regardless, they're in good shape in this group, however, on 6 points right now. Though I think they have their two toughest matches left here, hosting Chelsea, and I think they finish on the road at Milan. But sitting on 6 points in second place, I mean, you got to be happy about that. Salzburg, they're selling club. They get a lot of young new players, sell them on, and then new ones are already there, or they bring others in. Chelsea, on the other hand, are looking a lot better under Graham Potter. I'm not sure that this weekend went very well, but it's a very different setup here because Salzburg just want to play on the front foot and outscore you. That's certainly not the way Manchester United have played for a long time now. And I think it's going to be a tough match for Chelsea because they go on the road and they have to win. But I do think that Red Bull Salzburg are going to do a lot to leave open spaces. And I think that's going to cause some problems. Getting 3/4 of a goal at home. I mean, I'm on a big time home underdog kick this season, and I feel like it's been fairly good to me so far. I'm going to try to keep doing that as much as I can, especially because I feel like the big clubs in Champions League or any European competition are a little bit ripe for the picking, if you will, because they get bet or their numbers are usually too high than they should be. And I feel like it's generally if you lean to an underdog that's in a smaller league against one of the Chelseas of the world in this competition, that's never really a bad idea to bet. Now, in terms of this actual matchup, like I said, Chelsea's going to have a lot of open spaces. They're going to need to win this match. And unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're backing Salzburg, you get, if they lose by a single goal, you get half your stake back. So, I mean, it's definitely a loss and you don't want losses, but it's certainly not the worst thing that could happen. Take a shot, only lose half a unit if they do hang within a goal. I do think there's some risk that things get ugly and it gets worse and worse and worse. Goal differential, they're 4 up on Milan and they play them in the last match on the road, as I mentioned, but that's still a great spot to be, I think. Chelsea, on the other hand, on 7 points. Milan and Dinamo Zagreb are both on 4. So, I mean, this is pretty close. It could go anywhere. I feel like Chelsea had a tough one this weekend and are just going to have to get right back at it and play as hard as they can in a different competition, a long flight from relatively long. Nothing in Europe seems to be that long, but a long-ish flight from London to Salzburg, which is not exactly the biggest town in Austria. So I lean to the underdog at home. I at +1, I'd like it a lot more, but it's not so bad the more I talk it out. And that's why I do these podcasts, besides trying to entertain all you beautiful people. Next, we have Sevilla hosting FC Copenhagen, or Copenhagen, and currently Sevilla are a 1.25 goal favorite, which is a monstrous number based on how they've played for this entire season. They're sitting bottom of the group, tied with Copenhagen on 2 points, and both have really bad goal differentials of -7 for Sevilla, -8 for Copenhagen. And this is a big battle to see who will make it to the Europa League, because third place matters. Sevilla, the 6-time champion or something like that of the Europa League. It's like the perfect competition for them. And maybe the last few seasons of being in Champions League and staying around, maybe that was a little bit beyond what they were capable of, though certainly this team is way different and they've essentially had to rebuild, have a new manager who's come in, all that sort of stuff. Sampaoli is going to be an aggressive manager. He did it all the time at Marseille. I was really surprised he didn't stay on for another year after he got them to Champions League. But he's brought a new energy to Sevilla. I think that's very important for their success. It wasn't working under Lopetegui, but he also lost like all of his talent. So, I mean, had to start over essentially. But with Copenhagen, they're going to play a defensive brand of football and try to really keep this as quiet as possible. I went under the first time these teams played. I think while I was on the way to Germany, I watched it. And it was a goalless draw. There was really not much offense to speak of. And 2.5 as an over under here seems really high. And I think that's one of those situations where if you're thinking about betting Copenhagen, you basically are like, well, do I take that 1.25 on the road underdog in what should be a really tough change of environment, Sevilla being like the hottest city in mainland Europe versus Copenhagen, which is probably pretty cold as we speak in the Scandinavian territories in the end of October. Or do you take that under 2.5 because Sevilla can win 2-0 and you still win a full bet there where you lose the Copenhagen side? I don't really know. I mean, Sevilla's defense is certainly not impregnable, to use a Mike Tyson line, but I don't know where Copenhagen are going to score besides the set piece, weird penalty, handball, something crazy, blah, blah, blah. I think from where this, just from looking at the points in the table, you got to assume that Copenhagen are going to do their best to try to be as defensive as possible, because they finished their campaign at home against Dortmund, and that's much easier than Sevilla going on the road to Man City, though Man City have everything clinched, I think, so far. Can't be caught. I guess could be caught by Dortmund potentially, but can't be caught by either of these two teams. So I think Copenhagen are going to play as tightly as possible, even down 1-0. I don't see them really rushing out and extending that. I mean, I guess if they do lose this matchup, then they're going to have to beat Dortmund, and Sevilla are going to have to lose to Man City. And they'll lose that tiebreaker if it's head-to-head. I can't remember. So that might make me think that they come out a little bit sooner than what I was just saying. But ultimately, I think 1-0 in the 80th minute, I think Copenhagen would take that, which doesn't make that 1.25 look great, because they probably push out at that point. Sevilla are just as, and probably way more likely to score than Copenhagen are at that time. But I think I like under 2.5 a little bit more than I like that 1.25, because I don't know that I trust Copenhagen to score, and I think a 0-0 is another possibility in this matchup, especially if you saw it the first time. Next, we go Dinamo Zagreb hosting AC Milan. Already went through this group a little bit for that Chelsea-Salzburg match, but both these teams on 4 points, bottom of the tied for third, I guess, not technically bottom, but one of them has to be. Milan really struggled with Chelsea, but they have 2 fairly straightforward matches to finish with Zagreb on the road in Croatia. That's not great, but then at home for Salzburg, I would expect them to win that Salzburg match. And then so really depending what and I guess there's some advantage. You get to see what Chelsea and Salzburg, what the result is. I don't think that Pioli will keep his players from knowing that result, but I mean, you never know, I guess. Dinamo Zagreb, I think they're the worst team in this group, certainly by odds to go through or to win Champions League. I know there's some discrepancies between to win markets and to advance markets, but regardless, Zagreb currently 3/4 goal underdogs at home with all the juice. Maybe this falls to a half, but I feel like there's too much money on Milan and the too big of a named club for Dinamo Zagreb to fall much further, maybe to a half of a goal, which I think would be saying something, because that means the market really, really respects Dinamo Zagreb at home. I haven't had a lot of success fading Milan, I got to say, or really backing them has been best for me, mainly against the better teams in Italy that they're underdogs to. And they did win the Scudetto last year, but this is not the same type of talent thing. There's a big discrepancy here. And Dinamo Zagreb, I mean, I went to the Croatia match against Austria in Vienna just a month ago, and I mean, I know their goalkeeper Livakovic, and then also Orsic, who's a good player local to Croatia. But I just don't know that there's a lot more to that team where Milan have so much talent. The biggest question, I think, is what Milan has available to them because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries lately. As an underdog player, AC Milan are never really going to be on my list, but I do like Dinamo Zagreb getting that 3/4. And I'm curious to see where this line is finishing up. I don't think it'll hit a half. And I do like the idea. Same thing with Salzburg, the home dog. If they lose by one, I'll get half my stake refunded. Next goes Celtic hosting Shakhtar Donetsk. Currently Celtic a half a goal favorite with all the juice. And this was a pretty competitive matchup the first time they played. And I got to say, Shakhtar Donetsk, they've been much better than I think a lot of people would have expected. They're on 5 points right now in the group, sitting third, only one behind Leipzig, whereas Celtic are on that single point. And I mean, Celtic were favored at Shakhtar Donetsk, though technically they weren't playing in Ukraine. Clearly, they were playing in Poland, I believe. And so that kind of explains this number a little bit, though it's a little bit odd to see a team on 1 point through 4 matches being a half a goal favorite. I mean, it feels like a balls to the wall type of effort here that Celtic have to go out there and do. And you're probably sick of me saying this, but the UK just overbets its teams like significant amounts. This one looks like it's trending towards 3/4 of a goal. I still think the best player on the pitch is Modric from Shakhtar Donetsk. I'm really surprised that he kind of hung around, Ukrainian national. But Celtic, I just don't really trust. They've gotten a fair amount of respect in this tournament so far, but I'm starting to think that based on their performances versus the marketplace opinion, it just seems like a lot of biased people from Scotland or the UK or just the British Empire in general. Not a huge fan of that one, I got to say. But from where I sit, Shakhtar Donetsk, I mean, they're on 5 points right now. They really I feel like they're looking at the Champions League group stages as more than in sight. Like they think they're probably going through. They get Leipzig again. They already beat them. And I feel like the future is bright for Shakhtar Donetsk. I'm almost interested in seeing if there's some numbers on them to advance because they probably will be. I mean, they're hosting Leipzig. So I feel like there's a lot of bright side. I mean, certainly they could screw it all up here by losing to Celtic. But then we got Real Madrid and Leipzig on the other side, which we'll get to next. So I really like Shakhtar's chances a lot better than I thought I would coming into the tournament, and ultimately after what's been going through that country, it's insane. As of course I'm getting a missed call, which I thought I had that on Do Not Disturb. Anyway, so yeah, lean to Shakhtar Donetsk getting a half. Next go RB Leipzig hosting Real Madrid. The other game in this group, Real Madrid on 10 points, Leipzig on 6. So Real Madrid aren't done yet. And this number keeps crashing down. I mean, first I think it was Leipzig getting a quarter at home. Now it's Leipzig a pick'em with more juice on Real Madrid. But I haven't watched the Real Madrid match from this weekend yet. So I'm hoping that's not an injury thing to Karim Benzema, but it kind of feels like it. They're not clinched, so they can't really rotate as much, and they don't really like to do that anyway. It's weird to me that the best teams just play their studs even in games that really don't matter. But this one does. And I don't really understand. Like Leipzig are a much better home team than they are on the road, but that's not against teams. It's usually against teams in Germany, not in the Bundesliga, not against Real Madrid, the best team in the entire world, European champions right now. I guess maybe you can't argue they're the best in the world, but they do have that trophy. When I think about this one, I mean, I guess I do want to back Leipzig at home as an underdog, but they're not one. I almost feel like there's less for me to talk about here because I don't like fading Real Madrid. They can look terrible for 85 minutes and still win 2-0. And this was a really close matchup the first time they played, but ultimately Leipzig collapsed at the end and then fell behind and then went all for it as they should have, but didn't even cover the spread as a pretty big underdog, despite being, I think, goalless for a long, long time. I just don't know that there's anything that I really trust here in Leipzig. And I like I just said, I'm very interested in seeing what a Shakhtar Donetsk to advance number is out there because they should have any sort of tiebreaker over Leipzig, as they're also 3 goals ahead in goal differential. So they don't screw up that Celtic match, that might be a really good ticket for a big underdog to get through. Borussia Dortmund then hosts Manchester City. Currently, Dortmund a 1-goal underdog, and Borussia, they're doing better in this competition, but they're also in a group with two really bad teams. Sevilla, who just lost way too much this offseason, essentially, and then Copenhagen, who are from the Danish league. So good for Dortmund sitting on 7 points. This matchup was really close when they went to Man City. They saw Erling Haaland and suddenly remembered how to play football all of a sudden. But then I don't know if they ended up covering the spread. I think they lost 2-1. But regardless, it's one of those things where I feel like Dortmund. I went to that stadium. I mean, crowd is huge. That's for sure. We all know that. But there's kind of a problem, and I don't know how you can trust this team at all. Yeah, 2-1 was the final that last time. But anyway, where I sit with Dortmund right now is that they tried to improve their defense by bringing in Nico Schlotterbeck and Niklas Sula, and they still play Hummels. I don't really know what the deal is. Like, maybe Ayrton Terzic is a Borussia like man, a BVB guy, and he just doesn't really have that much to him. I mean, he did win a DFB Pokal, but I mean, I'm not sure what that really even says. Did smash Leipzig, so it wasn't exactly a weak final. But regardless, Man City, I mean, certainly going to be weird for Erling Haaland to go back to Dortmund, but I don't think people are going to like boo him or hiss him or whistle him. I mean, maybe they will just try to get under his skin, but I think everyone knew he was leaving, and that's kind of how that club does it. The Borussia fans will be out there. They'll be yelling. They'll be screaming Bay. They'll be, I guess they'll be a little different because they're not going to be shouting about Schalke the whole time, but maybe they do that on non-Schalke days as well. I don't know that I really want to step in the way of a Man City team with potentially an angry, pissed off Erling Haaland. Not that anything poor has happened to this team to make them feel worse, but I don't think these two teams are anywhere close in terms of class. You can see that as a 1-goal underdog at home in a 81,000 seat stadium. Or not that many seats because they're standing room only, because that's where I was when I was in the Südkurve, in the yellow wall, die Schwarzgelben. I mean, I like their chances of going through because it's really going to be hard for anyone to catch them. I just don't know that this is one I want to get in the way of, even with the push on a single goal loss. Next, we'll move Benfica hosting Juventus. Currently, Benfica and PSG, off 2 draws, are tied on 8 points. Juve are in big trouble to advance because they lost in Israel to Maccabi Haifa. Can't really say much about that because I didn't watch it, but that result was shocking. And kind of along those lines, Benfica are a half-a-goal favorite at home. I mean, there's a lot of juice on Juve right now, but I mean, I'm shocked by this number, and I automatically lean Juve because of it. But I think this is one that you should skip. As I said earlier, the big name clubs, they tend to be overvalued in this competition. So if they're overvalued and getting half of a goal, then a lot of people trust Benfica. No, to be real, the Benfica offense worries me a little bit, but they were perfectly fine against PSG. They've looked like they've been great in this competition. Last year knocked out Ajax, who won literally every match of Champions League group stage. I was hoping to get Benfica at something way cheaper than this, and clearly that didn't happen. In terms of over-under, I think under 2.5 is interesting to me, but also Juve know they need to win this match to get to 6 points, so only 2 points behind Benfica with any chance of moving through. And they're also tied with Maccabi Haifa right now. So, things aren't good there. They did smash Empoli on Friday, so they got a little bit extra time to rest to travel to Portugal, probably Syria. Felt bad enough about them. I guess now we get horns honking. I don't know. Everyone's just trying to get my attention right now and ruin this podcast. But then I'll move to PSG and Maccabi Haifa because I'm skipping Juve. PSG, a 2.75 goal favorite, big number. And they've been getting some really short lines against a lot of teams, whether in Liga or in this competition. And they haven't been playing great, I got to say. They were pretty fortunate that Marseille didn't really take them seriously. I guess they did smash Ajaccio around, but Ajaccio is like really bad, like the worst team in Liga probably. So I don't know what to think about Maccabi Haifa. They're going to go to the Parc des Princes and then ultimately try to sit with 10 guys on the goal line, and then probably the goalkeeper just a little bit in front of it because he can use his hands, plural. But yeah, I'm not very interested in getting involved in that one, as I don't really know what PSG is going to do with their starting lineup, all that sort of stuff. But they want to win this group because they want to avoid a runner-up schedule, or they have to play a group winner in the next round. So not much for me there. So for best bet for Tuesday, I am interested in Salzburg getting getting a 3/4 of a goal. I do like Copenhagen under 2.5. Dinamo Zagreb I like a little bit as well, getting 3/4 at home. I do like Shakhtar Donetsk getting that half. I like it more at 3/4, and we might get there. Not much for me to do in the Leipzig match. Don't think I want to touch Borussia Dortmund. I just don't think I want that in my life. Fading Man City, I've done fairly well, but I try to be very careful about when I do it, and I usually want 2 goals of insurance, not just one. Juve I'm going to skip, and Maccabi Haifa I just don't think are competitive enough to be considered. So I'm very interested in Shakhtar Donetsk. I got to say, part of me feels like this might be Celtics' last stand. Ultimately, I mean, it has to be. They need 3 points here. But also, I don't really like when you're betting teams because they need things. So I guess it comes down to Salzburg, that under in Copenhagen, Dinamo Zagreb at home, and then Shakhtar Donetsk. I'm going Modric. I'm going against Celtic. They haven't won this competition. Maybe this is the time they do it. But I think Shakhtar Donetsk are really strong, talented. I thought they were right in that match. I mean, they drew the first time they played in Poland. And I just haven't really agreed with Celtics, the amount of love they've gotten from the marketplace so far. Maybe this one hits 3/4 before it kicks off, but I'll grade it at +1/2. And getting odds right now, I think Shakhtar Donetsk can get a draw and essentially clinch 3rd place in Group F and a Europa League berth. Though I wouldn't even put it past them to go win this match and then really give it to RB Leipzig with a lot of pressure in that last match when they are heads up. Now we move to Wednesday. As we are very deep in this episode already, 22 minutes. So not that deep. I can go long some of these, but we have Bruges hosting Porto. Probably the biggest surprise team in Champions League history. No, I don't know, but like finally, Club Bruges did not win as they drew a goalless draw. I think it was at Atletico Madrid in the eastern side of Madrid, and that was the first time they hadn't won in a group where they're expected to come last. Club Brugge currently on 10 points right now. Porto in second place on 6. And Porto are a 1/4 goal favorite on the road at Bruges. It's going to be really hard for me to skip Bruges. I've backed them, I think, in every match in this competition so far. A lot because I just don't like Leverkusen or Atletico Madrid. But wow. Getting a 1/4 at home. I mean, Porto are good. They certainly are. I don't even know that they really outplayed Leverkusen in the last matchup, but somehow won 3-0. Now they go on the road. They have to win this match. If Bruges draw, then Athletic can't catch them because they only have 2 matches to go. They're on 4 points. Leverkusen can't catch them at all. So Bruges are at least going to the Europa League, which would be probably apropos fit for where they are. They haven't allowed a single goal in this competition. And I've been on them a lot during this competition because I felt like they had a lot of really good players that didn't really latch on or were struggling on struggling teams that were then trying to get younger or reinvigorate, restart their teams, et cetera, et cetera. That makes me think of Didrik Boyata quite a bit, which is a great defender for Hertha Berlin the last few years, but they've had huge problems. He hasn't played a ton for Bruges, which says something if he's not the best in their team. I know he's Belgian, but like still kind of a surprise move for him because he could have played at a lot of teams in Germany, especially after watching how poor they are. Some of those teams are awful. But where I sit with Porto, I mean, they're 6 goals allowed, nothing goal differential, so 0 there. Everyone else in this group is negative because Bruges has been so good. I mean, I think just based on the success so far and just riding streaks, because winning streaks only end once. I know that's not probably the best like take every game individually type situation, but Bruges deserves that faith, and I think the marketplace tried to make them as close to a favorite as possible. It only got to a 1/4, and that's probably going to be enough for me because I think that they can hang with Porto, and we'll see if Porto can even score. I think goalless, win half a unit. Bruges move on to the Champions League. I mean, knockout round. That sounds like a really nice start to Wednesday. Inter Milan then hosts Victoria Plzen. Inter in great shape after drawing Barcelona 3 points ahead. It's not done yet, but they do play the worst team and are a 2.25 goal favorite at home. That says something, though. I wouldn't put it past Inter to really struggle here because they've unfortunately struggled in the Champions League quite a bit over the years. But Victoria Plzen, Czech team, had a Czech beer from them when I was in Eastern Germany in Leipzig, but ultimately negative 13 goal differential, 0 points so far, 4 losses in 4 matches. That's not looking good for Barcelona. And if Inter get 3 points here, Barcelona, the best they can do, I have to beat Bayern and then also win their last match just to be tied. So and Inter won and has the head-to-head against Barcelona, which I think is the tiebreaker. So Inter are going to win this match, I think. And just what number, how much do they want to win by? Over under 3.25. I don't know. Not much for me to play with there. Next, we'll move to Ajax and Liverpool. Surprisingly, Liverpool are not the one to have clinched so far, as Napoli won all 4 matches. And I feel like they probably should win against Liverpool when they play again. They'll be underdogs, and we'll see what that lineup looks like. I kind of am interested in Liverpool here, hoping that they win, Napoli do not. And so that last match actually matters for seeding and for winning the group, essentially. Ajax currently a 3/4 goal underdog right now to Liverpool. Liverpool with a loss at home to Nottingham Forest this week, or excuse me, on the road at Nottingham Forest, but still in their home country. Now they're going to Holland, not too far. I guess Liverpool's not that close, but ultimately Holland and England are pretty close. But Ajax, I think part of why I took Napoli to advance in this group was because Ajax were supposed to be second favorites, which was nuts to me. But especially considering all the players they lost, they're a great team for sure. But they lost their manager and they lost so much talent that unfortunately I just don't know what level they are compared to Liverpool. But I backed Ajax the first time in their match at Liverpool. It was very close throughout. Liverpool definitely had me nervous, like they were gonna end up covering the spread, but Ajax ended up losing by a single goal. I won half a unit. Felt good to get out of there and escape with some more money in my pocket than I had beforehand because I was nervous. But that, I guess, a lot of times that happens with teams that I bet that are over a goal underdogs because really it's not that first goal that kills you. So I'm always more worried about that first one. And then when that goes, then it's like, okay, how am I going to lose this in garbage time? But Liverpool, they've been playing really poorly, and this sitting second in this group on 9 points, where Ajax are on 3. That actually doesn't feel like a fair representation of how they've played, I got to say. They've been awful, especially versus expectations. I mean, I'm not sure what the money situation is if you just blindly bet against Liverpool all year, but besides a 9-0 thrashing of Bournemouth before they went on a great run, I just don't know. It's probably been one of the best bets in soccer is to go against Liverpool. With that said, it's only 3/4 right now on Ajax. I think I need more than that for me to want to play. I mean, you lose half a unit if they lose by a goal. I feel like we're getting all these mediocre teams at home hosting the big guns, only getting 3/4 of a goal. If a lot of these move to +1, I think I'll be playing a lot over the next couple days. But until then, I'm not sure that's necessarily going to happen just yet. I do lean to Ajax though, for sure. 3.25 doesn't make me feel that comfortable on the over under total. And on 3 points, Ajax really can't take a draw here because they'll be eliminated from the competition. I think they do think Europa League's probably acceptable considering the giants they're playing with in this competition, though they were rated to finish higher than Napoli before this thing started. Rangers are 3 points behind them, so I got to worry about that. I just feel like Ajax's strategy in this one is probably going to be more aggressive than I actually want it to be. So maybe that 3/4 is not good enough because that essentially they have to score first. Because if Liverpool score first, then Ajax are only going to come out even further. That scares me, but I guess makes me lean a little bit more to that over 3.25. Speaking of Napoli, they're a 1.75 goal favorite with all the juice, hosting Rangers. And it's really hard to know what they're going to shoot for or what lineup they're going to use coming off a tough match on the road at Roma in Serie A this week. Rangers, though, on minus 15 goal differential. I actually had some faith in them at home that they're going to be a lot better. They played Napoli pretty tough there. I think they were Are they a favorite? Okay, it's first time this happened. I need to look that up, but I don't know if it really matters. Nor do I really want to do it live on a podcast. But ultimately, I just don't think Rangers are a team I can back, and I'm going to leave them alone. Next to go, Atletico Madrid hosting Bayer Leverkusen. Two teams that I really like betting against, I got to say, and I do it often. Atleti, a three-quarter goal favorite at home. They have to win the match. They're on 4 points. Leverkusen are on 3. Draw really hurts both these teams trying to move along. Draw essentially, I think, will mean one of these will be behind Porto for sure. But I guess things aren't dead if they draw, so that helps a little bit. Atleti, I mean, I say this every time. Everyone's probably sick of it, whether you're listening to my Betting the Pitch podcast for the Champions League like you are today or on the weekend stuff. The story with Atleti is they are a defensive team with a defensive manager that has offensive players, and they're just caught in between. I think they don't have the personnel that they want to be the good defensive team, and they don't have enough offensive players, and it doesn't work, especially when they take red cards, yellow cards, and like ridiculous things from their manager. Ultimately, I do think Simeone is partially or fully to blame for that. But Leverkusen, on the other hand, have already fired their manager. They had one of the worst starts, especially considering expectations that they actually did qualify for Champions League last year, and have been one of the best teams in the Bundesliga, the German Bundesliga, for a while. But Simeone just didn't have any goals in his team. Didn't even start Patrick Schick this weekend. I don't know if he was hurt or what the deal was there. But that's not good. They're going to a really tough place to play where the fans are going to be nuts and all over the referee. I don't know that Leverkusen are really that much of a red card threat. Atleti are every time they play, even at home. But I don't think Leverkusen are that immature that they'll fall into those type of traps. Jonathan Taz seems pretty even keeled, level headed, I would say. Hincapie seems to be that way as well. I mean, the problem is Leverkusen, they just want to be on the front foot the whole time. I don't necessarily know that Xavi Alonso has changed that ever since he came over from Real Sociedad, but I do think he's going to by default play more defense than Gerardo Seoane because he didn't play any. Neither really did Peter Bosch before him, and I guess that's what Leverkusen are into. But I'm sure getting the Champions League is like a perfectly fine season for them. In this situation, if they go on the road and get a draw at Atleti, that's going to put them in a little bit of a tough situation because I think they will. Let's see, their last match is hosting Bruges, which is going to be tough. I mean, I'll put it that way. It's going to be real tough, but definitely not. They're facing the worst team in there. So if they get a draw, they're going to be 1 point behind Atleti, and then I mean they're 3 points behind Porto. So it's hard to say what that's going to happen. A draw, I think. I mean, you get that result first. I feel like the staggering of, and I don't really get why Champions Leagues, I mean, they must schedule this before because that is a very meaningful result. If they know that Porto lose, I feel like a draw is much more acceptable to Leverkusen. If Porto win, they have to go for it, and that's scary. But I guess maybe it's good for us so we can know what Leverkusen are going to plan to do a little bit more accurately by seeing that first result. And that's honestly something I love. Permutations are sweet, but it's also nice to see what teams know they need to have, and I think that does change game plans. It certainly wouldn't the day before. But I think they probably go in there with like, okay, we're going to either be aggressive 10 out of 10 or we're going to be aggressive 7 out of 10. And that first result might explain some of it. On the other side, Atletico Madrid, I want to bet against them as often as I can. My concerns with Leverkusen are their defense and going on the road and that they don't have enough goal scoring talent. Patrick Schick, I want to see in there, but he's not. He's in a really bad run. He can be really hot, but it hasn't happened to me since the Euro that was rescheduled to 2021. And that was 2 summers ago. So I don't really know what to say about that one. I like the 3/4 right now. I think that's bigger than I made it. I can actually check that while I'm on here, and I think that's relevant. But it's really hard for me to want to do anything but go against. Yeah, I made it a half, so it's a little bit too high, I think. And I certainly lean against Atletico Madrid. Next, we have Barcelona, a quarter goal favorite to Bayern Munchen. Go figure. Barcelona gets a lot of love, certainly. But they are, I mean, Bayern have already, well, I guess they haven't clinched the 1 seed. If they lost out, Inter could win out and still take it. So I don't think that Bayern is going to be sitting their important players. I think this is a prideful matchup for them. They like beating Barcelona. They like putting them in difficult situations, especially against a former player like Lewandowski, though Robert is certainly scoring a lot and scaring the heck out of me betting against him. But For this one, I mean, Bayern as an underdog, I think this happened 2 seasons ago, when they were essentially clinched in this same type of scenario. Um, it's not very often you get a chance to bet Bayern Munchen as an underdog. And against a team like Barcelona with so many defensive problems, yes, they have Lewandowski and he can help them stay in it by scoring. Over under 3.25 seems like 3 goals too low. I don't know how high you can make it really, but this line suggests that Bayern's not going to be playing their best players. Maybe they aren't because they've essentially clinched here. Barcelona can't catch them. So they're in the Champions League knockout rounds. I do think getting the 1 seed out of this group is important. Maybe not as important, though they do have to go to Inter for that last matchup. So I think it matters to them and they'll play what they can. Thomas Muller came in as a substitute in the cup last week. They had to play midweek, but they're used to it. I mean, they do that all the time. They're Bayern. It's going to be really hard for me to avoid this one. I know this number says that it kind of stinks and it says that Barcelona is the way to go because that's where all the sharp money is to push them to a quarter. Bayern currently with all the juice at a quarter of a goal underdog. You just never say that. So I lean that way. Next, we have Eintracht Frankfurt hosting Marseille. Currently, Frankfurt's a quarter goal favorite. All the juice on Marseille on the road. And when I scroll down to this one, Eintracht Frankfurt are in last on 4 points. Marseille are in second on 6 points because they swept the Sporting part of the series. And so this is a pretty tight group, one of the tightest ones out there. 7-6-6-4 the point totals. I think Eintracht Frankfurt at home, they're a favorite, so they need to go out there and win if they're going to cover the spread. If Marseille take a draw here, that means Sporting could lead them and they will be at best tied with Tottenham. A draw, though, keeps them 2 points ahead of Eintracht Frankfurt before that last matchup. Marseille, I think, are at home for Tottenham in that one, so that's going to be huge. The Orange Velodrome would be really hopping if they're allowed to have fans, but now that I think about it, their fan behavior usually is despicable, and sometimes they might not have fans for this one. I know they didn't for Sporting. If they don't for Tottenham, that's going to be huge and could swing this group significantly. Anyway, Eintracht Frankfurt, they have been playing a lot better. They started off the year pretty poorly. Were really bad in the German Bundesliga last year and didn't really deserve to get into this competition because they didn't finish in your European place, but they did win the Europa League in some crazy world, and I backed them quite a bit in it, so that made even less sense. But Marseille, I was really disappointed in Amin Arit and what he did, just like trying to do a trick play in the middle of the pitch, turnover for PSG, got the ball and put it right in the net. Neymar off the post. And other than that, it was a really competitive match, even when they fell down to 10 men. They have that in them, certainly. I feel like Marseille just kind of feeds off their crowd and does a lot of immature stuff. Maybe it's because they have so many Arsenal players in their team. I'm not sure if there's something in the water over there, but Guendouzi is never going to shy away from grabbing someone's throat or whatever. They got plenty of others. But in terms of this matchup, I lean to Marseille getting a quarter. I like them a lot just as a team that's built in this offseason. Eintracht Frankfurt, they brought in Lucas Alario, but he was like never playing for Leverkusen and essentially lost that job to Patrick Schick. I have a lot of, Lindstrom has been really great and he's improved quite a bit. I'm looking forward to him for sure, but I don't know that's necessarily enough to stay away from Marseille as a quarter goal underdog where a draw will win me half a bet. I do worry a little bit of the money crashing this one down, though I don't know that anyone's really saying that Ligue 1 is much stronger than the Bundesliga in Germany, but I feel like it's very similar in my humble opinion. So I lean to the underdog here. I don't really have a lean at under 2.5, so I think there could be goals in this one, which does make my underdog lean a little bit weaker. But I just think that Marseille are a team I want to back. I do feel like they're pretty fortunate to be on 6 points thanks to Sporting just being a joke. Not a joke in general, but a joke in their matchups. And last but not least, that is Sporting. Tottenham, I guess it's not sporting behavior, but Sporting Clube de Lisboa de Portugal in Lisboa. They are a 1.25 goal underdog on the road at Tottenham. Tottenham are going to probably give the ball away and try to counterattack. And Sporting Lisboa, they get their goalkeeper back, who was awful and lost in the match against Marseille when he, a lot of mistakes, then took a red card all in like a 5-minute period. Hopefully that was just a senior moment because the guy's like 35. So it's not like he's an 18-year-old, but their replacement was 18 or 19 and looked like it first corner he literally didn't even get a hand on and left the goal empty. So I want to make sure that the number one keeper for Sporting Lisboa is available and starting. However, he's also terrifying, which makes it probably one of those things I should stay away from Tottenham as much as I can. But I do think Sporting Lisboa is capable, and Tottenham giving more than a goal is just too much based on how they play. I don't like the strategy. There's always rumors about Conte leaving. Tottenham they're 1.25 goal favorite. All the juice on Sporting Lisboa at this point. I'm not as worried about a 1.25 versus a 1. So if this falls to +1, I'll push if they lose by a single goal. I mean, I like free movies, and essentially watching a soccer match for 2 hours and then getting my money back and not having spent anything is not the worst scenario. Over under is 2.75, which feels high to me, which I think also speaks to my interest in the under. For where they seem set, Sporting's only 1 point behind Tottenham. I think they're just financially in the Portuguese Liga. I think they're very interested in the Europa League. I think that seems like an acceptable result for them in this competition. Tottenham want to win this group. They want to win every match, all that sort of stuff. I don't really think I'm that afraid of them. It hasn't really gone great betting against them so far. I do feel like I've had the right side in a lot of those bets, I'll say the least. But I guess the last one was weird, though. Harry Kane missing a late penalty, though. He dove, and it was ridiculous that it was given, but that was a Spanish La Liga ref, and that just follows me around forever. I lean to Sporting Lisboa getting 1.25, and I think this is going to be a really great group that's going to come down right to the end. So that takes us now for the best bet for Wednesday, and then I'll summarize the 2 best bets, and I will also give you an ultimate best bet for signing off. So I do like Bruges at home getting 1/4. I think I will be on that. I'm not sure that's the strongest lean I have, though. Nothing for Victoria Plizen. Ajax, I just don't think I want to touch, even though Liverpool, I'd love to fade. Probably want +1 to do that there. Rangers, no thank you. Bayer Leverkusen getting 3/4. I do like. I'm not sure that's the strongest one for me, but I do like that one pretty significantly. Love Bayern Munich getting 1/4, but I'm really worried they're playing a youth team at the Camp Nou, and that scares me. I think I need to see it. The problem is if I see that lineup and it's anywhere decent, they're probably going to close a favorite. At least fall to pick them is, I think, probably more accurate of what's going to happen. I almost feel like you got to step out there and just play Bayern now. If you're going to do it, you probably need to before anyone gets wise or wind of a lineup. Marseille then getting 1/4 from Frankfurt, I do like, and I do like Sporting Lisboa getting 1.25 from Tottenham. So it's between Marseille, Sporting Lisboa, Bayern Munchen. I guess I like Leverkusen, but I don't think they qualify that enough on that list. I'm going to go with the home dog. Football Club Bruges. The Belgians have been awesome. They've been awesome to me. I think that they're going to play really great defense and make it hard on Porto. Even if Porto do, I guess, break into the scoring column, which Bruges has not allowed yet this entire tournament, that will certainly cause some problems. But I feel like Bruges can score. I think they're going to get rated once they get to the knockout rounds. Everyone's going to try to buy their players in January, if not this summer. So it might be a one season wonder, but I'm really into Bruges, and I feel like that's a side that as a home dog, it's too hard to pass up. So that will then give, I guess, Bruges getting that 1/4 on Wednesday. That is my best bet for Wednesday. For Tuesday, it's Shakhtar Donetsk getting 1/2 goal on the road at Celtic. And I don't really want to fight a home crowd for my ultimate best bet. So I'm going to go FC Bruges +1/4 at home as my best bet on Wednesday in the Champions League. If you got any questions, you got any thoughts, theories, anything you want to slide in some DMs, you can do that at @the_Real_G Warner on Twitter. Please like 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really means a lot. It gets me more in the search history and gets me more than 69 listens per episode. Just kidding, though. That would be a really tight number. If you listen to the baseball podcast that I do with pregame, you'd know that one. Or if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so I can eventually try to get some commercials, though it's going to take me 10 years to get 1,000 subscribers. So you probably don't have to worry about there, but thanks for checking me out. @the_Real_G Warner on Twitter if you got anything. I look forward to talking to you soon.